podcast. It's just yapping.
Just yakking. And I saw your post go up an hour or so ago, and I actually wanted to talk to you about that today. It's just interesting, that style of stuff, because I think that's like most of the people who are going to listen to this can be coaches. And what you were talking about there in that post, I was like, yes, 100%. Like people complain about the game, so to speak, and it's like, well, the game's not going to change. You're just not very good at it.
Like 100%. And I understand
so
the part of the conversation about it not being a meritocracy on the level of coaching ideas. And that's it. Hopefully what you agreed with in the post, and we can debate it, is like, I think that social media is much more of a meritocracy than what it's portrayed. You just have to look at it for what it is.
%. And, like at the end of the day, there's not much point, and I hear people get very emotional about this, like they have this idea of like what's fair, what's unfair. It's like, well, A, get that idea out of your head. There is no fair. And also, at the end of the day, it is a game of grabbing people's attention. And if you can't do that, then nothing you have to say matters, because nobody's going to pay attention to you.
And you're not just competing against other coaches, maybe sharing more edgy fitness content. It's like you're in the same feed as like Kim Kardashian with a photo of her butt, or like, a Travis Scott dropping his new album, and all the other coaches who are better at grabbing attention and have mastered the communication style of short form content. It's its own language. It's like 100%. You can speak English, you can communicate with people in real life, but then like there's this barrier that exists between you and communicating with people online. It's just that skill set of expression through that medium. And like once you 100%. Accept that, it's so tangible, this process. Because I think before that, people are like, it's just luck, or you've just got to have it. It's like, then all of a sudden it's like, it's the same as going to the gym. You just have to understand the underpinning principles and have a go.
Absolutely. Like, I was having a conversation with someone recently about it, the algorithm, how do you hack the algorithm? And it's like, I don't know if you'd agree with this. I'd love to get your take, but it's like, stop thinking about the algorithm. It's not the algorithm. Algorithm doesn't hate you. The algorithm doesn't know who you are. It's a simple matter of psychology, right? If you can get through to people, then it's going to work, right? If you can push people's buttons, if you can go, okay, I'm going to make something that's either going to annoy enough people that they're going to start commenting on it, the algorithm's going to like you, or create something that people agree with, but they agree with it enough to actually share it and want to be seen to be sharing it by their friends, right? So they get like an increase in status or what have you. That's the reason people share stuff. It's not just like out the kindness of their heart. So if you accept that, it's like, okay, cool. Well, gets you a fair way into understanding how that game's played. It's not the algorithm. It's not that you need to post at a specific, sure, time of day and stuff might help depending on when people are active, but it's not about hacking the algorithm. It's about understanding who do you want to speak to and like, how do you push those buttons, so to speak.
Principally, I agree with you, but as Jamie Smith would sort of say right now, my narrative is a bit different. Shout out to Jamie Smith.
Love it. Yeah.
Because I sort of talk about it just like facing the algorithm and just thinking about it's like the algorithm is trying to do a job, and you've just got to think about what does the algorithm want from you, and it wants content that keeps people on the app on a predictable basis. So if you're just posting around the same time on a relatively daily basis, the algorithm's stoked for you. And every now and then it'll make you go viral and it'll do work for you. But then when you're inconsistent, when you want to yell about, my name's Angus and I'm a personal trainer and today I'm here to talk about, it's like, what the fuck are you doing? Sorry. Like, did you think you had attention?
Just wanted to jump on today.
Yeah. That's a podcast. Totally 100%. Sweet. And the thing that underpins this as well is like, that Marshall McLuhan thing changed my life. The medium is the message. Because I went to uni, I did journalism, and it was just like first lecture, first thing that came out of their mouths. And like, it didn't really hit me that hard at the time. I actually sort of blew it off because it seemed kind of obvious. But now after working in the fitness industry, which is not necessarily something that people view as a creative field, but like the modern coach, it's like that can be such a huge aspect of it. I just realized how many coaches just can't wrap their head around that. Well, they need it explained to them.
100%. That's really interesting, actually. I had no idea that you had a journalism background, but it makes a lot of sense. Which also I should do the thing I'm meant to do, which is actually get you to, briefly introduce yourself in case anybody doesn't know who you are, right? So who are you? What do you do? And I'm going to give you a few opportunities to just plug mentorship and any products throughout here as well. So fire away.
Just get in the top of the funnel. That's how the system works. I'll do the work from there. Just give me a follow on Instagram. But thank you. I do appreciate the platform. Obviously, you've got to shout out everyone. I'm Angus. I'm a personal trainer. I've been a personal trainer for 10 years. I blooded myself initially in a small warehouse gym in my hometown of Wollongong, which I ended up getting banned from. And I don't think I would have been successful there at the time either, because the fitness industry was very much emerging in Wollongong at that time. So packed up my shit. Well, no, I was still living at my parents', but I started commuting 2 hours, 4 hours a day up to a really busy Fitness First in George Street. Worked there for about 5 years. And then I had always loved the idea of being a content creator, but I never got serious about it until my face-to-face business was ripped out of my hands in 2020 briefly. Well, not so briefly, but we won't go into that. But obviously everyone was staring at their phones.
Yep.
Things went pretty well for me on social media. I went back into face-to-face coaching when things reopened. But then I was really lucky. Someone reached out to me to ask if I wanted to do I was talking a bunch of shit about Olympic weightlifting and just the dogma in it. And the guy who has the biggest weightlifting club in the UK asked me to go over and do a series of seminars. And it was sort of on that trip because I was always just like, online coaching's a joke. That's for fucking charlatans and stuff like that. The legit stuff is face-to-face coaching. But just on that trip, I just had so many eye-opening experiences I had to reevaluate my goals and be honest about my ambitions. And I did obviously reevaluate what was possible when I had so much momentum, because I never thought that was sort of possible just from shit posting about fitness on social media. Because everyone's like, if you're serious about career development, fuck content creation. I don't know what they say to do. Try to chase a job in pro sport or something like that, or just keep working on your business and stuff. And that's definitely a huge component of it. But then, I just sort of decided that if I wanted to have the biggest impact possible in terms of spreading my values through the industry, that content creation will be the central means of that. And then I've sort of just been focusing on that for the last 3 years, working out what is my core philosophy and what is my model. Just getting ultra clear on that, because that would be embarrassing if I shared a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah, who would do something like that?
I've said dumb
I love
things
it
as well.
I love it.
You have to
it's a great
yourself.
Story. Oh yeah. I joke a lot of the time, but
I have it coming
to talk a little bit of shit these days. Oh yeah, we all do. But I say to people as well, if I rip on stuff these days, please understand that I came up in an era, when I went to university, I got taught the FMS, and I put hundreds of people through the FMS, right? So I'm not trying to say this from up on my high horse that all this stuff's stupid and you're an idiot. I'm saying that I've made those same mistakes and it's a complete waste of time. But yeah, I think that can get lost in translation sometimes. I've certainly done some incredibly stupid stuff with clients over the years.
Oh yeah. and shared some.
Oh yeah.
I don't think my content has ever been too egregious, but I've definitely said dumb things that I would say differently.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, we all do that. But that's okay.
But I hope you were entertained. I know you. No, this is the thing. I know everyone was entertained. So you're welcome, regardless.
100%.
And see, this is the thing. If you're worried about making some shit content, it's it probably won't spread that far, and you'll entertain your peers at the very least. Play the game with us.
It'll be funny. Yeah, remember that time you posted that stupid thing? That's going to be the worst outcome, right? If you, I always say this to people, if you're in doubt about the content you're posting, go follow Joel Seedman and just go through some of his posts and be this guy's dead. I don't know how serious he is. But if he's comfortable posting that, you should be comfortable posting whatever the hell.
Bro, the fact that Kassem felt obligated to debate me about fucking hypertrophy or whatever that unmediated shit show was, I was like, that's the power of social media. I had no right to be in that room.
No, I love it.
Yeah. But again, it's not a meritocracy. It's just take a shot at the title. We're all working with the same app.
Yeah, I think is a big part of this as well is there's a generational divide, that goes on throughout the world. But there's a generational divide that occurs within fitness. And there's certainly this attitude, and I probably came up at the tail end of this, where it's about doing your time, right? And like,
What can
you
you
got to
give me
work
a
your way
year?
up. And
Like what year? What year? Because I started to like 2015, 2014. I started taking over my brother's business when he was going to Europe. Sort of got my certs. What year is this when you're
yeah,
starting to
like
train people?
you're a spring chicken. Like I'm 33, so like I failed. I went to university and dropped out twice. First was a commerce degree, then was a psychology degree, and then I was gap yearing through Europe for about 3 years. Came back, and my way of like sticking it to mum, because mum was big on education and she wanted me to do journalism, funnily enough. And I was like, nah, mum, I'm going to rebel. So I did an exercise science degree, right? That's how you really stick it to your parents. So when I first started like coaching people was actually overseas. It would have been like, oh, fuck, I sound old. No, it would have been 2010.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was like, just got like obsessed with the whole fitness thing. So yeah, like it's 14 years. So I feel like ancient, but yeah, there was certainly, well, there is still within fitness.
I was sort of around because my brother became a personal trainer when I was like in year 10. So that was my exposure to the gym. Was my brother finished his cert 3 and 4, was like one of the youngest franchisees in Fitness First history, like 2 weeks out of high school. It was insane.
It was a wild time back then too.
It was sick. Simply Shredded forums. Ziz being
I used to
alive.
love it. Like I think I've said this to you on like DMs before, but like my like pleasure right back in the day, and I'm so sad that internet forums aren't really a big thing anymore. I used to go on the starting strength forums in like 09, 2010, right? And just talk absolute trash to people. And like sometimes I'd lose, sometimes I'd win, but it was the absolute best. And like some of those training ideas, to be fair, that I got back then, like I still hold them now. I'm like, people shit on like Mark Ripito, for example, but I'm like, at the end of the day, like I did that whole 5x5 thing for a while, and guess what? It kind of does work. People love to shit on the simplicity, but sometimes simplicity is a good thing.
I'm a Mark Ripito apologist. I'm pro Mark.
Yeah, me too.
Still.
I'm like, sometimes,
like the current content, but in terms of the impact on me, was profound.
100%. I totally agree. Like my first exposure to like biomechanics was the starting strength book, which I got from, actually my cousin bought it for me. I would have been like 17 or something. Got this book and I was like, sick. And when I got to university, I was so much better at biomechanics than everybody else because I was like, oh yeah, moment arms. Don't worry, it's all about hip drive. Yeah. The hip drive part might have been wrong, but like the basic physics, it
push
holds
your
up.
Hips to the ceiling out of the hole. It's like, that's one way of looking at it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's a narrative, as we say. Yeah. As to quote Jamie Smith again, it's a narrative. We love it.
My exposure to Mark Ripito was in like year 11 or 12. My mate found out about it on 4chan, and he got the starting strength Go Mad package. And it paid off so much for him. He put on so much mass and put on a decent amount of fat, but like just that base build, it completely changed his 100%. Physique. In like, he committed to it for 9 months, gallon of milk a day. We were pre-drinking, about to go out to the club, and he was downing the back end of his gallon of milk with Kahlua for pre-drinks. It was, because how it helped me was I was always a little, Ziz was still alive, so I was still like training for aesthetics, but I always gravitated towards a little bit of a focus on strength training. And all the programs on Simply Shredded, they only ever did the compounds. It was all just bro splits, but they were only doing compound movements once a week. And I spoke to my brother, I spoke to all the top guys at Fitness First. I was like, what would happen if you just did like the compound lifts 3 times a week and you didn't do any of the other stuff, just focus on strength? And they're like, oh, you'd burn out your CNS, like you'd be overtraining. So I never really bothered with it. But then my mate told me about starting strength, and he was like, yeah, that's exactly what it is. You just do the compound movements. He's like, have you heard about linear progression? And that was just like, because I was an early periodization adopter. That was probably the one drawback of having a brother who was a personal trainer and trying to upskill like that when I was fucking 16 and 17. But then just being told, no, just add 2.5 kilos a week. I was like, you don't have to do like 70% and then fucking whatever's it's so like, that rattled me to my core. And like there's still some ideas in that that are like big parts of my training philosophy. There's also a lot of stuff that I was like, oh, that was hectic, like we've got to get this out. But It's good stuff.
Yeah, I'm all about it. Like, and even just like the attitude of like, yeah, you do this until you stall, and then you know what you do when you stall? You just eat more. You take 10 pounds off the bar, and you try again.
Yeah. You get back behind that boulder and you keep pushing.
You know, you never use the term like deload, but that's essentially what it was, right? It's like, yeah, just back off a little bit, recover a bit more, and push again. Like,
the milk thing was huge for me as well because I didn't have the stomach capacity. I'm a big dairy guy, but I had to go to chalky milk for the calorie density because I just knew that was the only way I could gain weight without tracking. I was just too lazy to track. But I was like, if I ate 3 square meals and I down 2 liters of chalky milk, and then any sort of snacking's a bonus. If I keep that down, like I'd put on weight successfully. That was all my. I mean, I'm back to being like, I'm not that big anymore, but I did get up to like 90 kilos at one point. That was actually, the day gym shut down. I finally hit 90 kilos and then quit weightlifting 3 days later.
I love it. I remember being in Croatia backpacking and like I was doing starting strength and I was like, cool, we'll go backpacking around. I'll party, but also I want to find a gym where I can like squat 3 times a week and do deadlifts and stuff, which in Europe is actually not that hard.
What
and I remember just walking around and every day. Oh, this would have been 2010, maybe.
Is we online coaching? Are you talking about you coaching people that you're bendering with in Europe?
Nah, this is me literally on a gap year soul searching, but being like, sick. I'm going to read starting strength forums in a hostel room because I'm a weirdo. And then I'm going to go out in a pub crawl. And the next day, I'm going to walk to the supermarket. I've got hardly any money because my whole budget is just drinking. And I'm going to buy a liter of milk. And then in the afternoon, I'm going to buy another liter of milk. And then all I'm going to really have is dinner. And then I'm going to party again. And I was
just so practical.
Suboptimal, to say the least. But like,
no, but such a box ticker in terms of like, you will not, it's so protective of you being in a calorie deficit because this is the central threat to the system for so many. If you're looking at this through the anti-fragile lens, which is a favorite of mine, like that was just the big thing. It's like,
yeah, absolutely.
I loved training hard. Like that's why I managed to get decently strong. I just never developed the physique. And obviously that would have helped with the strength side of things as well. I just couldn't handle the eating. And it's totally my responsibility. Like I hate it when people are like, no matter what, I can't put on weight. It's like, no. It's like find a way, find calorie dense foods. Everyone can find a way. But it's still tough. It's the other side of it. I will stick up for skinny guys. Bulking is harder than cutting.
100%
in the long run.
I know people don't associate me as being super skinny anymore, but like I'm 6'6" and I'm 97 kilos, right? So like I'm
such an ace up your sleeve in the fitness industry, which is run by manlets.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like that's why like no one's going to want me on stage next to them. I'll dwarf everybody. But you know, like when I first started lifting, I was like 80 kilos on the dot, right? So it's like I was still 6'6", but I was like 17 kilos lighter than I am now.
Oh, wow, so, you're taller.
Yeah, I would have blown away in a breeze. Yeah, like just super. And these days I don't look as skinny, but like, yeah, it's hard. And that's why like, imagine me going into bodybuilding. They'd be like, oh, your stage weight should be like 120 kilos. I'd be like, absolutely not. Like that's going to be, yeah, like possible probably. But I'm not willing to, as you say, like do that because the eating would absolutely destroy me. Like being full all the time and force feeding yourself sucks.
Yeah, and honestly, the eating was also the thing that affected my training the most because it was so hard. Because I mean, even powerlifting, it could be tough, like throwing a belt on after a big meal, but trying to be like lightning quick under that bar with Olympic weightlifting, I've just housing 2 burgers and some chips, which is dumb. I realize you leave it for after, but then it's still just like, but then you got to eat again after.
It's still hard though.
It can be tough. And just like, yeah, honestly, a large part of what put a halt to it for me was I genuinely ended up with my head in the toilet so many times. And like, I didn't have an emotional reaction to that initially, but I did just have like those literal, like when my head was in the toilet, I was like, I don't know. Like, and it was, I didn't like, that was days where I was like, fuck, like I'm not gonna, the scale's gone down and just overshooting my eating a little bit. Not absolute force feeding in like a grotesque sense, but I guess, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's just, I don't know. It was intense. I was like, I don't know if I like this. Like I said, probably should have just tracked me macros. Like people will be rolling their eyes at me. I'm just trying to share something that's hopefully relatable to people.
Yeah, like I used to do that Aldi like home brand Cocoa Pops with like home brand Big M milk, and like be like, because my theory was like, whenever you're full, you can still have chocolate milk and Cocoa Pops, which you could physically eat, and then the downside is you would physically be sick afterwards. Yeah, good.
I don't
times.
coach people on nutrition as well, FYI. I outsource.
Yeah, smart. What I wanted to quickly quiz you on was a couple of things to just either get us cancelled or at least ruffle some feathers. Because I've been enjoying some of your narratives around training. So I thought I'd give you a multiple choice question to start off here, if you're ready.
Yeah, easy. Yeah.
All right. Do knees, A, go over the toes, B, go under the toes, C, go around the toes, or D, near a tib bar? Go.
It's over the toes, I guess, is the best option here. I should have vetoed multiple choice.
I've loved it. And next, if you're ready, and this might be the thing that upsets some people, it's a little game I like to call cult or not a cult.
Oh, okay.
So I'm just going to throw a name or an acronym at you, and you can just tell me if it's a cult or not. And considering
wait, how objective do you want me to be, and how much? Like, I guess this is up to my own personal
not at all.
taste.
Yeah, be yourself.
Okay, I can be.
There's
I'll
no
be a
rules
bit biased and offensive about it then.
Yeah, go nuts. Go nuts. Considering we've already discussed it, starting strength, cult or not a cult?
Not a cult.
Not a cult. Love it. AT. It's actually funny. I had no idea what ATG was until like
heaps of people
not
still
super
say
recently.
like arse to grass.
Well, that's what I thought it was. And I was like,
Which it is.
And the way that I realized it was like during lockdown, I was getting, like hit up in the DMs, as you do, by this guy. I can't remember what his name was. And it was like ATG mentor coach or whatever. I was like,
Are you sure you don't remember what his name was? Oh, it's all right.
His name was Keenan something.
Yeah.
No, I think his name was Keenan. I was like, yeah. It's the guy. And I remember I replied once. I was like, what's AT? Like, I was like genuinely curious. I was like, what does ATG stand for? And then he's like, athletic.
Yeah,
oh, but
was that a red flag for you? Yeah, that was a red flag for me.
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy that's not a bit more of a moment for other people, especially when you learn about the other stuff. And I don't know how much we should go into that because I don't know how offensive that is to talk about.
I don't think it's like, put it this way, I think going back to what we first started talking about, the takeaway I think you can get from that whole knees over toes movement in general is like, A, it's genius marketing to start off with, right? Yeah. Because there's this narrative forever that like from, physiotherapists and stuff that, no, if you do squats, like your knees should go over your toes, blah, 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 blah. And this guy's like, I used to think that. And then I had crippling knee pain. And then one day I was just like, I'm going to push my knees over my toes. And all of a sudden, voila, no more knee pain, right? Absolutely genius. And I think the original narrative of that, I was all about it. I was like, no, great. Like, round of applause, love this. And then, as often happens, it just goes way too far. And some of those, I think I saw you post a meme of it, but some of those videos where like he's doing the demos and there's the crowd clapping or whatever, it literally just reminds me of like those old Western movies where the guy rocks up with the wagon and it's like the snake oil thing. It's like, oh, you've got an illness here. Like, try my special tonic. Oh, wow.
I wasn't necessarily shitting on Ben there either. I felt bad that he was sort of subjected to that in my process. It was the gentleman in the audience I was roasting in that meme. Oh, sorry, you were just referencing the clip. I don't know if you've seen my meme, but I was like, this is the S&C Taylor Swift. Because you know how people roast Taylor Swift for doing kind of mid-dance moves? And everyone's like,
yep.
Woo! I think Taylor Swift's pretty talented. But it is also, it's
100%.
like very middle of the road.
Oh,
is how I would describe it. And like ATG, people like, it's not the worst training system ever. I'm like, it's definitely not the worst training system ever. I agree.
But like, that's not a flex.
I don't know
either.
what is.
Like,
yeah. It's like pretty basic.
Yeah,
and if you want to be like really honest and if you're up to date, it just seems like they didn't observe some shifts in the zeitgeist of sports science. It's general training practices. It's
like they're in their own little bubble, I suppose, right? And it's like if everybody
if you're still just like Poliquin was the best stuff ever, Poliquin elevated our field. I will accept that 100%. I was there. I saw it, but things have got better.
100%. And like I was talking about this because
my
memories of Poliquin. Yeah, so much better. Like I remembered him initially for all the bad stuff because I was around that bio sig era, and I was like, what is this
And
nonsense?
just the pearl clutches. Like, Polygon was so edgy and disrespectful, and people are like, you can't say bad things about Polygon. I'm like, he would talk shit about you. You think he respects you?
No, he was a mad trash talker.
Yeah.
But like some of his early stuff was, yeah, absolutely influential. He was the man until, yeah, obviously he went off the rails, which does happen to the best of us. Might be us. And people, maybe in 20 years' time, people will be talking about us and being like, they started off good, trying to change the game, and then look what happened. Sold out. Started their own cult group.
It's naive to think that there's not that potential. I always try to stay open to that because I feel like you got to have that awareness.
Yeah, I was talking to
but it's happening in front of you all the time. So, but then again, I'm sure a lot of other people have had, yeah, like I said, famous last words.
Oh, yeah. Like I was talking to one of the coaches who works for me here, and he's young, like, I don't know, early 20s. I was like,
Sam?
Mate, like,
shout out to Sam.
Yeah, Sam. He's the man. We all love him. So I do a good job of pumping Sam up when he needs to be pumped up, and then sometimes, you know, deflating him when he gets a little bit too excited. But basically saying to him, like, you are absolutely going to be better at this than I am. Like, that's how this works. Like, because you will learn the stuff that I learn, and then all this new information will come along, and then you'll just go to like a higher level. Like, that's how this whole industry in every field should work. So like, he's like, oh, wow. But it's like, that's how, you know, this whole field should work. And people like, I love to talk shit about people that were saying dumb stuff like Poliquin back in the day. But at the end of the day, like, we wouldn't be where we are now if it wasn't for people like that. Hit me. Hey?
Nah, you're right. I can't argue with it. It's just not what I want to hear right now.
No, I know. But don't worry. I'm going to make this more fun again.
Opinion. Yeah.
Because my next cult or not a cult.
Right.
No, I know. Okay. Next one. PRI. Cult or not a cult? Not a cult.
It's flirting with it.
It's flirting. It's on the cusp.
Yeah. Do you want me to go further? So I was just trying to go one-word answers, but if you want, yeah.
No, that's fine.
I'll honour the
No, I would agree. CrossFit. Cult or not a cult?
It means a bad thing, obviously. Oh, man. Did you see what happened today?
I don't think it is necessarily a bad thing. Like,
did you see what? Did you see what happened today? The CrossFit game for today, and saying catastrophic happened.
Yeah, which is like,
but that's not even what necessarily pulled me up about what I was going to say.
No.
Yeah, because I've done 180s in my head with CrossFit, but I know what people mean. Yeah, just because I like it, it's a cult.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely a cult, but it's
the fact that I had to hesitate for that long.
Yeah. I think the last one, this is one close.
But like, yeah, for that sense, like so many people have such a religious experience with health-seeking behavior through CrossFit, and that's awesome. Like that component of it is sick.
Yeah.
That's what I get G'd up about.
Yeah, and I mean, this is a narrative that people don't love when I say it, because my background is like strength and conditioning, sports science. CrossFit's done more for fitness than anything else this century. Like, it's been the biggest
optimism and train variously. I trained just my last 12 months of face-to-face coaching before I did those overseas seminars. I was just paying rent at a really good CrossFit box in Sydney, CrossFit 168. And it was what CrossFit was meant to be. All of their coaches were like good gymnasts, good weightlifters. Like they had Kyle Bruce's competing at the Olympics. Last year, he was in taking classes for him when their other coach was on holidays. I was just running my sessions out of the corner of the gym, and I would see corporates undo their top button, get changes to some activewear, and snatch 110 in a fucking class with like just 30 other people. And
that is
I've seen the other stuff as well, which is a lot more common. But yeah, I've just seen the best of CrossFit, and like it can just be so good. And then also like, because when I talk about GPP, people are like, is that just CrossFit? I'm like, it's decidedly different to that. But they can fit under the umbrella of what I consider training somewhat variously relative to other people.
100%.
But it's still such a thing. Like CrossFit is not everything. People like CrossFit's everything. I'm like, it's not. It's a very much. It took a while to emerge and establish its own meta. It was kind of clear from the start, but it's solidified over time.
Absolutely. And like, I think going back to us being old now, I guess, and you having that exposure to fitness pretty early as well, people forget that like women didn't really used to lift weights. Like
No,
not proper.
that was the
unless
other
they were
thing. You're right,
bodybuilding.
Yeah,
Like it was
huge for women.
only chicks in the free weight section of like a fitness first were bodybuilders.
And it
Otherwise,
did
they were
more
doing
for
Les Mills.
accepting jacked women than bodybuilding did.
100%.
Bodybuilding probably did it before I was born, like to a certain degree, just because it had to happen, like the first females deliberately trying to get jacked. But as far as, I mean, obviously everyone sexualized the fuck out of it, but I think it was overwhelmingly positive. Just be like, women, jacked women, hell yeah.
Yeah, so I'm all about CrossFit. And I guess the last thing I'll throw out here, cult or not a cult, is just the whole field of strength and conditioning in general.
Yeah, it functions as a series of eggs, cults, and yeah,
100%.
a dynamic system of cults.
Dynamics. Yeah, that's right. It has to be systemized if it's strength and conditioning. It's a systemized cult.
And it functions. And it self-corrects to an extent.
Yes, it does. And I think social
media.
media.
You know how hinges came back big after like
Yeah.
PRI and tucking your pelvis was big, and like you know how the whole like vegan to carnivore zeitgeist slingshot we all experienced.
Yep.
Like
yeah, it's good.
Like and that's not really correcting. It's responding, sort of, I guess. But it's circling closer and closer. I think even because I agree with people when they say that, oh, we've just seen all this shit come back around before. It is just a merry-go-round. I do believe a lot of it, when it comes back around in sometimes more nefarious, but at least typically more sophisticated forms.
Yeah, I think that's true. Like, despite like we can look back at the past and romanticize how good the fitness industry used to be, it's like it's better now than it was before. Like the quality of information, the quality of everything has definitely gotten better. And yeah, it's gonna zig and zag and weird stuff's gonna happen, but overall, stuff's definitely gotten better.
You know what the weirdest change has been? It's kind of good, but it's kind of gone too far. Remember, and it's still the conversation, or the conversation's kind of catching up to it a little bit via people like Joey Swell. Because people ask me now that I'm vlogging in the gym, they're like, oh, like, are you embarrassed about like pulling out all these cameras? And I'll put up a fucking light. Sometimes the other day I had 2 cameras and a light actually. And they're like, are you worried about that? And like people just like running into your camera and stuff. I'm like, people are too polite about it these days. I'll be in the middle of an esoteric rant about fitness in the middle of filming a vlog, and someone will wait in the corner of the shot, not wanting to walk through for like up to 2 minutes. And sometimes I just end the take. I'm like, please just walk through. Like I'll edit you out. And obviously they're just trying to be really cool. And that's awesome that people are trying to help me on my content creation journey. But it's like, then I want to feel like I can go into a gym and make content and not get in the way of other people as well. So that's an interesting, and it's good. Like I'm glad people aren't karate kicking over my tripod deliberately. But yeah, it's almost just this overcorrection now. Where now when I go in, my alarm's always on. I'm like, I have to be watching for people and like making eye contact, smiling, and making know that they're sweet just before it's even a thing.
Yeah, that's fair actually.
Because if you're in a gym with a lot of young people, they all get it. Like they're all filming their lifts and stuff like that. So, and I think that's sick.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think like, because people go,
made me a better lifter. That's all the old heads are like, why are you filming? Like, and I know most people aren't doing it pure. I love the best form of entertainment. I mean, for me, it's watching my own surfing clips, but how good is watching your own lifting? That's my favorite Netflix show. Just laying in bed, watching myself crush PRs in slow motion. But the very real aspect of you see you lifting for the first time, you're like, what the fuck is that? I lack proprioception.
100%.
And you fix it.
You know, well, you think you lacked proprioception. I was 6'6". Imagine me trying to do a back squat for the first time. It's like watching a giraffe on ice skates. Absolutely terrible.
I mean, mine wasn't good. I walked on my tippy toes till I was 8 years old. So that's why I have a stacked set of calves, but my back squat wasn't too good. Trust me.
Yeah. I love it. And I guess like your training model, mindset, philosophy, this like train variously element, which personally I love. Like, you know, people call it like GPP. It's like whatever label you want to put on it, right? But what I've been like, I guess, witnessing from afar via the internet with like a lot of your content, a big part of it to me anyway, what comes across is like, you just find a way to simplify things and go, all right, there's all these different ways to do it. There's all these advanced models, but hey, this is what actually matters. So do this, then they do this, and then do this. And like, I think that's brilliant on a couple of levels, because like my big take on fitness in general is people don't lack information. Like if people wanted to, they could learn about periodization from the East Germans via Google, right? But people don't want to learn about, Eastern Bloc periodization. We might because we're weird, but the general public does not. So there's that element, but also like I think the longer you spend coaching, you realize that the best coaches aren't the ones with the most complex ideologies. The best coaches are the ones actually that can simplify things, into applicable concepts that people can put into practice. And I think you do that really, really well.
Yeah, I agree with you in that sense. It's the same. This is one of my central criticisms of the evidence-based era. This is not a criticism of the hierarchy of evidence. It's a criticism of the evidence-based era, sort of as a trend. Because you see, we're all looking at the same evidence, but then why do we see so much disagreement? Well, a lot of people just pretending to read the evidence, and then even like the research that we get, because they're answering questions that I'm also not asking. And why is that? Because I feel like I have a pretty good perspective on this stuff. And it all comes from your personal philosophy and your worldview. And that's something that I think is obvious to good coaches, but people don't discuss it. And maybe a lot of people, good coaches, intuitively understand it. But the attitude that I see with new coaches is we instill this toxic white belt mentality. It's like, fucking jack shit. You need to go to a course every weekend. Whereas I came into this industry obviously pretty empowered because my brother was a personal trainer. So I was like, everyone in this industry is probably an idiot. So I felt empowered from the start to use my own personal worldview to distill fitness information. And then that's something that I've just really been grateful for more and more since. I try to instill it in other coaches when I'm mentoring them and stuff like that, because that's exactly why. We're all looking at the same information, but like, why are people like, oh, fuck, Angus is saying some good shit? It's like, I feel like, see, this is another thing. I cringe at this conversation because it's also just like, oh, does that mean I understand fucking everything? It's like, nah, I do. I back my worldview. I do. I have to say it because I believe in it. And this is the thing. I think a lot of people have a decent perspective on things. It's just that it's divorced somehow from this bubble of fitness information that they struggle to interact with in a way where it actually marries up with their value system. Because this is why people are doing all these courses in this merry-go-round, because you're told to just, you don't know shit, here's the fucking course. And just do this. But then when it doesn't work, you just move on to another thing. Whereas what you're actually meant to do is go around sampling all this Kool-Aid, but then distill it through your own personal value system and worldview. And then that's how you arrive at something that makes sense to you. But then
100%.
Where the insecurity comes from is then it's just like, wait, this is my thing. Like, people are going to disagree with me, and I'll never be able to truly explain it to them. It will resonate with some people based on their life experiences and who they are and fucking the shit that they did growing up. But anyway, so it's just trying to strain this into practical takeaways for people. Like, I did this in Europe when I was on my Eat, Pray, Love mission after the fucking seminars. I was just like, because that Musashi quote hit me like a ton of bricks to sort of relate to this. It's like, what is it? Know the way clearly and you shall see it in all things. Like, you just got to be good at like pattern recognition. Like, if that's what principles are. And it applies within fitness to different aspects of fitness, but they're also much deeper than fitness. And so I went back through everyone who inspired me in all my hobbies, like my favorite bass players, people like Jarko Pastorius. In journalism, the people who inspired me, like Marshall McLuhan. In fields where they're marrying the objective and the subjective, because like that's something, the art and the science of coaching, everyone circle jerks it, but then like people can't actually explain what they mean by that. And like, so cooking is another good one because there's objective and subjective components to it, right? Music is another one because there's mathematics that underpin it, but then the heuristics and the principles are so developed by the giants, the shoulders of the giants that everyone stands on now. And if you think we stand on the shoulders of giants this is why actually we don't. This is why I shit on so many of those people with no shame. Fuck Poliquin. Fuck McGill. I'm into just fucking, give me some Nietzsche. What about fucking Hans Selye? What about Marshall McLuhan? Yeah, so fuck
Hans
all
is
these
the man.
fitness people, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I-
like respect. I'm a fitness guy. Fuck me too.
Oh yeah, fuck all of us. Like,
Sorry for.
This
Do you have the E? I really. Sorry, I've had a
Oh,
bit of a
mate.
day. I'm sleep deprived.
mate, go nuts. Like,
I feel like I think that was some good stuff, but I wish I didn't swear so much.
mate, that was actually brilliant stuff. And look, I've got a 2-week-old child, right, who shat himself so badly at like 3 o'clock this morning. So like, I feel you. Like, this might not be coherent, but that's what
I've been
people are
shitting
gonna
at the
get.
park all week up until yesterday. Because my toilet's been
Is that
out.
just 'cause you like it, or?
I got tree roots growing through my shit.
Oh,
It's
great.
crazy,
I had that
man,
once
yeah.
at a previous, like, our apartment. Worst. But I really like.
So
what
I feel
you
that I
said
don't
there.
have a little shit machine, but I'm knee deep in shit also in my own way.
Yeah. Look, we're all
We're
on
all
the
knee
same
deep
boat
in
here.
shit.
But I like what you said there because, look, I definitely, despite the fact that I said I rebelled by doing an exercise science degree, it's like, well, then I just went and did a master's degree in exercise physiology, and I was like, oh, well, that's what I have to do, right? And then, yeah, I worked in pro sport, living the absolute dream before realizing it's actually not the absolute dream. And these days, like, I don't read PubMed. Like, I don't care about PubMed. And
Oh, dude, this is some
It's
real
int-
shit. Just some honesty.
Yeah,
Because like it is important. Because I know,
don't
and I
care.
know you know this as well. Like it is important. Like good stuff comes from it over time, but you don't need to check in on it daily. It's a thing that
No.
develops over time. It's not a racetrack. It's like
yeah,
it's going like moss.
evidence-based is like, oh, let's not even go there, but it's like evidence-based is not, oh, PubMed said this, I've got to do 52 working sets within 2 reps of failure, otherwise hypertrophy doesn't, like, it's not that. It's going, you want a body of evidence, not a single
No, but
piece of
you know,
evidence.
see, and this is worldview. Sorry to cut you off because you're saying good stuff, but it also needs to be pointed out.
100%.
that This stems from your worldview because I'm sure when you were having other things explained to you in life, you're like, there's probably nuance to this. But these are probably
100%.
also true a lot of the time. What a lot of people are saying about these things are like, there's degrees of truth in this that I can explore. And just looking at the state of the evidence, like, sorry, no, you were talking, you were saying good shit.
No, I totally, you're pretty much saying what I'm trying to say. It's like, I have that background, right? So like you go and do it, you go do the science degree. A big part of that is, okay.
Oh yeah, you have the literacy because that's it. A lot of other
study,
coaches
right?
genuinely don't have the literacy.
No, you got to be able to interpret this shit. It's like, a lot of the time, like, people send stuff. I go, you read, even within the abstract, you go, this is not relevant to the point you're trying to make. Like, there's that. And there's also the fact that, it's funny, I have friends, family members that are academics, but in different fields, right? It's like a cousin who's an aerospace engineer, like, so much smarter than me, so much smarter than anybody that I know within fitness, to be honest. And you go,
Yeah.
exercise science is in its infancy, right? And a lot of studies aren't very strong and they would not stand up to some higher level scrutiny a lot of the time. And I absolutely, these days, like, I credit most of my thinking, most of my learning, most of my development to sources that have nothing to do with fitness, right? Like philosophy, like, cool.
You're a James Smith enjoyer? The thinker?
I mean, I didn't, again, like, sometimes I live under a rock. I saw his book came out. I knew he was a big influencer, and I probably wrote him off. And then
No. There's two. There's another dude. We'll move on to this after the podcast. There's another. James
oh no,
Smith.
you're talking about the James Smith that's not James Smith PT.
Yeah. that
Yes,
guy.
yes.
That's
sorry, I'm with you.
very James the Thinker Smith. What you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I like that stuff, and I also like hearing things that I don't agree with. Like, this is where I'm a weirdo as well. Like, I love arguing. I love debating. It's fun.
It's all dopamine.
But also, yeah, it's absolutely. But it's also how you learn, right? And I think going back to what you were kind of saying there in terms of these worldviews, it's like, well, perception is reality, right? And without us going too deep down that rabbit hole, like, it's absolutely true.
Trying to open up a can of BPS in the back end of a podcast is
imagine, yeah, like, why not? Why not? But it's like, you and I could read the exact same thing and come away with two very different conclusions, and it doesn't make one of us right and one of us wrong, right? And that's the beauty of, being a human, I suppose. Fuck, that's deep. But yeah, it's absolutely the truth at the same time.
It's a real podcast moment when you catch yourself in the middle of one. You're like, fucking hell, I sound like Chris
I was
Williamson.
like, fuck. Yeah, like, I need to like have
What
a
is the
rebound.
essence of a masculine man?
Fuck. Get myself really cancelled. Right, why not? I think
yeah,
what's interesting, what I wanted to quickly get your take on as well, and you've absolutely confirmed this for me. When I first saw your content, and like you've absolutely had this big rise in social media, which has been impressive. And I think at that time I was probably more entrenched in like strength and conditioning. I still had networks in pro sport, right? And you were ruffling feathers. And I think there was this idea that like you were just getting lucky, or you were just like shit posting and just deliberately trying to piss people off. When I look at your content, and this is like, I made a couple of notes, but like at first glance, especially back before you were doing the reels, when it was just like the text-based screenshots, right? First glance, people would go, oh, this is just random, like just trying to be controversial. When I look at it though, straight away, I was like, no, this guy kind of gets it. It's like, there's a deliberate stance. There's a clear goal of most of these posts, and you've always got really strong hooks for people, right? Yeah. And I say this to people a lot. Like, if we go, oh, what do you mean? Like, make your content less boring? I'm like, well, go look at what Angus posts, and like, even if it's a quote unquote like boring topic, like even you post today,
you would make your point better if you were like, go look at ATG. Oh, like, no, because that's dangerous. If they don't look at the right stuff. But sorry, yeah, because I know what you mean as well, because I think what you're saying is I strike a nice balance. Thank you for saying that. But like, oh yeah, these coaches disagree with me, don't they? Yeah, sweet. Send them over. Yeah, because that's the whole point. It's like, regardless, when it comes to evaluating the effectiveness of the communication strategy on social media, separate it from whether or not you agree with their ideas on fitness. Because there are so many people where I fully agree with their ideas on fitness, but I think they're the shittest content creators going. And 100%. Some of them do well in spite of that. Most of you will not. 99% of you will not. Regardless 100%. Of if you're a good coach or a crap coach, it's like, if you just want people to see what you're doing, you need to understand how to communicate variously. And hopefully training variously could be a part of that propaganda.
100%. Like, and I think the other thing is you need to understand what kind of business you're really in. And like, if you work within a gym, right? And it's like, you don't have to do any external marketing or whatever. You just coach people and you're just being a good coach. And that's how your whole business works. Cool. Disregard everything that I'm about to say, because it does not apply to you. However, if you're sitting there going, I want to be an online coach and I'm just going to be the world's best coach, it's like, you're missing the mark, because really you're not in the business of coaching people. You're in the business of getting people to sign up for your program. That is the actual business that you're in, because the coaching thing isn't going to happen without that, right? It's like, really,
also, everyone who works in pro sport is still just looking at Instagram all the time. Like 100%. The head of performance of an MLB team who has won a ring in the last 5 years slid into my DMs after I did a shit post about a certain movement cult. And
love it.
He was like, these guys do what they want in the off season. He discovered X movement cult. I saw you did a video on it. Can we just have a bit of a conversation? This is our highest paid guy on the roster. He's on millions and millions of dollars. I was like, will you pay for my flight out there? They're like, no, we'll pay for his webinar or something like that. Sorry, the point I'm actually trying to make, and sorry for flexing on everyone, but I do need a flex, because there are people who don't know how much work I've done in pro sport. Because I don't want to brag about it. I mean, everyone else is like, look at me working in pro sport. Like, yeah, NBA teams in my fucking DMs. MLB teams in my fucking DMs being like, hey, man, like these ideas are amazing. They're not saying this Instagram content's. No, they pretty much are just being like, can we hear the longer version? And like, 100%. That's how you want to work in pro sport. Because if you want to like, you want to subcontract it. You want to be like, hey, how I work in pro sport is they pay me money and I say how I feel about things. And then I hit end call, and I don't really care if they even get a result. That's how I work in pro sport. So like, mate, if perfect. You want to do it the traditional way, like by all means do that. But if you think that shit posting on Instagram will like absolve you from getting gigs in pro sport, you'd be mistaken. Just who's listening.
No, I love that. Well, yeah, because I mean, I've done it the traditional way. And like the reason that I stopped doing it is like, cool. Like I was living the absolute dream. Like, the absolute dream, and I can flex on people as well. Like I had a full-time salaried position as an S&C coach for Cricket Victoria, right? So it's like they're paying me money. That's my whole job.
That's
He
one
was
of
the
the ones
problem.
that could go quite big as well. Because whenever I think about Aussie Pro Sport, I'm like, fuck, how many AFL teams are there? But cricket has, at a lot
Cricket
of
was good.
different levels, probably like, it's still S&C, right? And it's still Australia. But is it
Yeah,
one of
it
the
was
better
still
ones, you
like,
reckon?
yeah, this is the thing. It was like, but, and it was great because I'm not a fan of cricket. I did not grow up playing cricket. I knew nothing really about cricket, but it exposed me to a lot of new things. And like, it's a really interesting sport to work in from that point of view.
Is it good
But
cricket,
like,
S&C?
it's much more interesting.
On
You
average, yeah.
get, I think, more leeway. Like you can fuck around with different ideas. Like there's different injuries. Like there's all this shoulder shit that you get to, nerd out on. So that
Were they
part was
getting
cool.
into the bit of their Franz Bosch and their Stephen Jones back then? Or is that
Oh,
after you got out of cricket?
no, Franz. Oh, Franz. He was big.
Oh,
We were
nice.
resistant. We were resistant to him in Victoria for a little bit, and then he came in. His
No, but the
ideologies.
ideas are super horny. Whether you like it or not, it's like, oh wow, water bags. Hectic.
It's wild. And like the reason anyway, like, and to hear you say like you do it like almost as a consultant, it's like, yeah, I'm living the absolute dream, guys. I'm getting paid 50K a year, and I'm working like an absolute dog, and I'm never gonna get any more money from doing this unless my boss retires, or moves on, but he's been doing his job for 10 years. And I don't know, he's probably not getting paid that much more than I am. Oh, and also nobody in cricket gives a fuck about strength and conditioning, right? So like there's the problem you get into. Whereas doing it on your own terms, well, that sounds much more attractive.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. Like, I mean, this was the thing. I got that was what put me into therapy over the edge. It pushed my imposter syndrome to the point where I was struggling to function because so many pro sports teams were in my DMs from all the shit posting. I was like, I need to just fucking, yeah, I booked into therapy. It affected, obviously it helped me with more than just imposter syndrome, but
Yeah.
yeah,
I think
making
it's
content,
really,
you can take it wherever you want it. And like I said, it's just especially the dynamic that you work in when you're just making them pay for your time, you give them a day rate or an hourly rate. Like, Jesus Christ. Like, you will get you're not going to get, sorry, you can work your way up to the point where you will be treated with respect, but there's still a lot hanging over you. Nah, I mean, the S&C guy, there is very much a ceiling in terms of your power in
100%.
a pro sports organization. Whereas like, I don't have that much power in the organization, but they have to talk to me how I want to be talked to. And like, I get to dictate the terms, and people have been lovely.
Yeah, of
But
course.
probably because I've had a lot of leverage. Whereas when they're
Absolutely.
like, well, everyone wants to be a fucking S&C coach for this team, they know that and they feel it. They're acutely aware of that at all time. You're like, no, but I'm different. And it's to them, you're not.
No. And like,
You are. I believe you're different, and you know how you can be different. Content creation, or just
100%.
private sector. Shout out to Christian Woodford. Not even online,
like,
not even content creation. Go do your own thing.
just
Like
do it
what you did.
yourself. Like, yeah, I think it's true. Like, I saw Jamie Smith post about this, saying like the reason that it's a commodity is like it's just not that hard to get athletes strong. Like, it's not.
Yeah.
Like, I'm telling you now, it's not.
If you want to have
like,
an impact, it's on some mid-tier athlete.
100%, like, it's so,
exactly what. Yeah, it's like anything. It's like trying to have a huge impact on someone who's generally gifted. It's like, yeah, like that's important that they have a certain, but they'll be fine. It's people like me and you. We need just someone who just sees things clearly. It's like, look, you're never going to be a pro, but this is the stuff that you need to be clear on.
I needed to be told that a decade before I realized it myself. But I think as well, like your like whole train variously model and like why that hits home in pro sport. My take on this is, well, from somebody who worked in pro sport and on day one, I mapped out like a 6-month periodized plan for every single athlete before realizing 2 weeks in that, the coach is going to change this training schedule without even telling me, or like this person's going to travel, or this person's going to get injured, or this person's played an extra game. So you can't do that. You actually have to always be training variously, you idiot. And I think like that narrative obviously lands for people massively within pro sport. And like, I joke about this all the time, and I'm kind of joking, but it's a narrative that I 100% agree with. It's personal trainers love to think of what we do and how we train ourselves as almost being like athletes. And it's like, we look down on like training gen pop, so to speak. But I'm like, guys, most people, like, unless you're getting paid to work out and sleep and recover, you are gen pop. Like most personal trainers fall in the category of gen pop, right?
If you want to get paid as a trainer, gen pop.
100%.
Gen Pop. Like my
being
Gen Pop
transparent.
clients treated me so fucking good. So
then,
yeah.
And I enjoy it far more. Like I get to a point where it's like, I don't care if someone bowls a few kilometers an hour faster in cricket. I don't even care about cricket. But I'm like, oh, Jenny's back's been fucked for years.
Gen
She
Pop
feels
is
so much
the big
better.
dance, 100%,
Yeah.
100%. And
And
like, don't get me wrong, I get horny over the idea of pro athletes as well.
yeah.
It's heaps horny
We all do.
conceptually. The reality of it, though, if you're serious about just like impact, feeling rewarded, it's Gen Pop.
100%. Like my gym is people over 40. That's all we train. And like, I'm all about them. Like I get them. It's great. And they're very appreciative of it as well. Because like they get forgotten about because every other coach out there is like, no, I want to train pro athletes. Don't want to train these like old people.
It's like try and get an accountant to run sub 13. Like that's mad.
Yeah, like that's a
I
flex.
get cheat up about that. Yeah.
That's a flex. That's a flex. I want to quickly, before we wrap this up, a little bit, going back to this idea of like even here, like the words that you use, right? Like content creator. I think it's important for people to like listen and like actually kind of dive in on that a little bit. Because yeah, like obviously you coach, you're a personal trainer, you work in fitness, but a lot of the time you're going like, no, like my Instagram, like you're viewing yourself as a content creator, like it's your full-time job.
I mean, now by explicit definition, I coach 5 people.
Yeah, which is great. Like I know you have like the group training stuff as well. And it's
I'll do
been
more soon.
interesting. Yeah. Like I have not done social media seriously because, you know, when I was in pro sport, I was like, I don't need to. And then I started my gym and I was like, no, we're local. Why would I do that? Over time, realized I was wrong about those things. But
We all got that too.
Yeah, a couple months ago or a month and a bit ago, I was like, fuck, I'm going to start a brand new Instagram, right? For a couple of reasons. Number one,
I was filthy when you did that. I was like, don't make me follow 2 accounts. I did. The content was good. You got me.
I don't even use the old one. But I did it for a couple of reasons. Like, and now that you told me your background's journalism, I'm ashamed to say that I've done this before. I have a slight background in doing some ghostwriting for bigger fitness accounts, right? On Instagram.
Yeah, I'm
Twitter,
learning about this. Jamie was talking about it the other day. I didn't know this was the thing.
Yeah, and like, so people pop up, people go, oh, this seems so similar to that. I'm like, yeah, because I wrote that as well. But now it's like, cool, done it for other people. I just want to do this new one, really dial in on who I'm trying to speak to, and just also prove that I can do it, right? And to go back to our initial point on the algorithm, it's been absolutely wild. Like, and Jamie messaged me about this because I put a stat up. I've had quite a few posts go like bananas. And
is this
I'm
the
like,
most you've applied yourself to it? Like, have you had
100%.
a stint previously on your own of, yeah, this
on
is
my, like if somebody had have hired me to do it, like, don't get me wrong, like I take that seriously, but on my own, I was like, I never cared. This time's the hardest I've gone. And I posted it and it's like, I've got 500 followers or just under. It's like accounts reached is 850,000 in the last 30 days, right? And everyone's like, what the fuck? I'm like, yeah, it's not the algorithm. It's not your followers. Like if you have good content and like, yeah, a few pieces have gone viral. I was doing the stats this morning. One's got like 2.5 million views, 65,000 likes and stuff. I'm like, yeah, it's a banger of a post, but I'm like, it's a screenshot of a tweet. Like it's lazy as fuck, really. But it's got those strong elements. I think for you,
people confuse good content with something that they put a lot of time into. And it's like, sometimes those overlap, but not always.
Not always. Like, you know, and the volume.
Dude, some of the shit that has tickled me the most as well. And that's the thing. It's like, if you're just honest about your own experience, it's like, where did you get the idea? Oh, that's right. Instagram Reels coaches convince you that you need to put 6 hours into editing a reel.
100%.
Like,
and like,
we've got to do better than that. People that complain about that, I'm like, fuck's sake, like, take content.
Yeah, I don't have time to edit
That's
it.
why it's like you didn't take content creation seriously, but then you felt obligated to participate, and that's how it ruined your life because you never got good at it. So of course it seemed like a pest.
100%. And like, I think it's massive. Like,
which I'm sure it's been a pest for you, but you're looking at it as like, I know it's going to be hard. The upside is worth it. And I view it as something that I'll get good at if I apply myself.
Well, yeah. And it's like something where I go like, I never valued it. Like I never wanted to be, put it this way, like again, like I don't know if it's like imposter syndrome, own narrative in my head was like, well, I don't want to be an influencer. I don't want to stand out. I don't want to be famous. I don't want any of that shit. Right. But then I've realized I've missed out on the things that I want to be able to leverage because of that, because of mine deliberately not trying to do it. And then I'm like, hang on a minute. what kind of idiot or like what kind of person would I be if people would hire me? I would write content for them that does well and then just not do it for myself. Like that sits even
Because
worse.
that's the classic
than, like,
thing, right? With all these business, you're like, why wouldn't you do it for yourself? And you're like, I'm gonna do it for myself. Yeah.
I was like, oh fuck, maybe I should. And like, yeah, apparently it's working quite well. Oh fuck, who would have thought? But it's wild. And I think like if we were trying to give some coaches some clear takeaways, like I've got some notes on like some of your posts that I think are like real simple. And like, again, going back to this, like, fuck, he's got a degree in journalism. Everything makes so much more sense. Like, because even like those like little shit posty things, I'm like, no, these are written pretty well. Like,
bro, imagine if I was out there writing Murdoch propaganda.
it'd be so
bad.
wasted. So wasted. Be wasted. But like, I saw one of your ones, like, I was scrolling through this morning and it was like a simple, real one. And I was like, coaches should take note of this. It's like, not using straps does not equal a strong grip. It means you have weak hamstrings. I'm like, boom. Like, and people be like, oh, yeah, like, but I'm like, no. That's like a very strong hook. And then obviously the caption's even better. And then you've got a lot of like your focus on like dorsiflexion for pliers. Like the hook on that's very good as well. It's like, fix your pliers by doing this. And then again, like you go and look at some other coaches' content and it's like, oh, hey guys, so just wanted to talk through this session that we're going to go to do today. And it's like, well, yeah, of course it's not.
It's not even a bad hook. It's an absent hook. It's like, there's not even an understanding of the sport.
No, there's not. And like, yeah, I think it's
like
as you said, like they feel
flippers
obligated.
At a rugby game. That's opening your video. Like that's what that is. People are looking at you be like, does this person understand what they're attempting? And no, you don't if you're opening like that. I guess it's 100%. Them being like, established authority.
Yeah. Like, fuck. And I know you've gone hard against them before, the old authority brand. But like...
No, they're friends of the show.
Oh, good. That's good. But like, I've never like... That never sat well with me. And maybe it's because, again, like our worldview is a little bit different. But like, I don't need to be the authority on things. I don't need to like have clients that go like, yes, sir, or anything like that. I'm like, no, I just want to be able to communicate ideas and help you solve problems. Like that's pretty much it, right? And that whole authoritarian thing, like you need to be the one presenting like the information. It's like, actually, I think a better way for most coaches to approach content is less, this is the best way to do it, and more, this is what I've done to do this. Like, because then it's your story. People fucking love that. And then you get over the whole imposter syndrome because it's never, no one can ever call you out on being like, oh, this is what I did. It's like, cool.
You never get that much hate as well. Like I'm telling people to get fucked on a daily basis and it's like still overwhelmingly positive despite my best efforts. So like you'll be fine. Just to anyone who's listening.
100%.
So some of the techniques that I think are like quite universally applicable, probably more specifically to short form content, which is where a lot of people are going to sort of start this journey as well, is a negativity bias is like a great hook builder. So that post, how I could have said it in a way that would have been very much true, but not algorithm friendly, is like, it's okay to wear straps when you do. There's a million ways you could say shit. It's okay to use straps when you're doing Romanian deadlifts. It helps you get more weight on the bar. And what did I say? Oh, if you don't, that was fucking poetry. That one. Sorry, I'll just explain the negativity.
Oh, it was. I looked at it. I was like,
you're making them feel like they're missing out on something. So one of the common ones that I'd like to use that this is a better example of is 5 things I wish I knew about strength training before I got started. Not, hey, 100%. My name's Angus. It's just like, you're about to miss out on some of the most valuable things I ever learned in this 10-year fitness journey. I communicated that in 5 things I wish I knew when I started. Like you reading that in like, that's 3 seconds. So, and we're not even into if my content or ideas on training are good yet, but I ticked the biggest rock. Yeah. I did something that made them feel like they were missing out. So, because when I say negativity bias, a lot of people have heard about that. And then they think, because like I can be quite abrasive and I'm quite critical. It's like you can lean into the negativity bias while still being true to your authentic self. If you're a positive person, because this is the thing, a lot of people see me rant and rave and think that that's one way of getting attention, but you can be positive, but there's still techniques that people use. If they're not going to yell and scream at the camera, they'll be like, you can be lovely. Like, hey, these are 5 things that I wish I knew before I started my Pilates journey. Let's go, girls. Like, and so people are, oh, this is a positive person that resonates with me, but you're still creating this sense. And this is whether you're trying to market a cult or whether you're trying to market dynamic systems theory and BPS model and the gate cycle, it's all just like, can you communicate it in an effective way? Can you build those hooks? And again,
I love that.
this is a logical process when you understand the underpinning principles and you just develop, which you can develop your own framework. And like I said, your framework should be personal to you. But then, like I said, there are just some principles
Universal.
to this.
Yeah, I love that.
And so, there was another. Oh, well, yeah, like I said, take the negativity bias and then just actually go commit yourself. Just the biggest, not the biggest thing, because I have seen people, like, I feel like Gary Vee created a lot of people who are just like, yeah, just post. And that's a huge rock. Like, a lot of people just aren't participating enough, but some people aren't self-aware and actively trying to get better at communication and better at the process. So it's like, as long as you're participating and consciously trying to get better at it, you will. Because this is the thing. It's okay. It's so acceptable to be eating shit as a face-to-face PT. It's so okay to be trying to be stronger as a powerlifter, or me trying to run faster at the track. And people are like, look at him have a go. But it's people don't actually, but people think that they'll be laughed at for being like, I'm trying really hard on YouTube, guys. Fucking, I know I'm not good yet, but sorry, don't say that either. But just like, have a fucking go. Like, people are so ashamed to be failing at content creation that they never participate, and then they're like, oh, it's a bunch of bullshit. It's like, apply yourself. Genuinely.
100%.
And if you don't want the upside of it, you don't have to. It's not compulsory, but it's like, if you're interested in the upside, apply yourself like you applied yourself to other things that you got fucking good at. Because that was my thing. I made an agreement with myself. I got the ball rolling with, like, I got pretty serious about content creation. But when gym shut down, I was like, I'm not taking a day off content creation for 2 years, and then I'll evaluate how things are going. Things went better way sooner than that. But then it was the same with the podcast. I started a podcast way back. Again, people like this too many. People were saying there's too many podcasts in 2016 or 17 when I started the High Performance podcast. And I was like, I told my brother, because my band, that was another thing that kicked off after 5 years. But I was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's just consistency, right? And not being like utterly shit. So I told her, I was like, you have to fucking commit. I'm not doing it unless you commit to doing this for 2 years. It took us 6 months of weekly episodes with guests to get our first 2,000 download month. And then within 6 months of that, it was just 10,000 downloads a month, just fucking churning over. And like I said, because I just took it seriously. I don't have, I have good thoughts on this stuff. And obviously I have life experiences that sort of set me up better for this stuff than most. And I wrote it all down in an ebook that I launched an hour ago. So link in bio. Sorry for doing a mid-roll podcast, but just to cut myself off.
Like, I think it's good though, because like I say this to people all the time, like because a big part of it is participation, right? And then a big part of it beyond that is effort. Like, are you actually trying, not just participating? And then I think the third bit would be like reflecting or evaluating, right? And the volume of content that I've been posting is crazy. It's like minimum 2 posts a day every day. But a big part of that is because I just want to try shit and see what's working, what's not working, so I can refine it. And then I think there's another layer that nobody really wants to speak about. Like, if you want to get better at something faster, you can just pay somebody else and learn it, right? Like, you can do that. And that's where like mentorships and shit absolutely come in really handy. And this is where I'm going to ask you to plug yours, because I'm assuming all the stuff that you're talking about is going to get covered in all of your mentorships.
Yeah, if you want the nuance, that's where you're really going to get a big serve of nuance. And I run that quarterly. We're just in the middle of actually doing a mentorship. So there's no intake open, and there will be an intake of the mentorship open sometime in the next 6 to 8 weeks. I'm just in a phase of living my life one day at a time as much as possible, enjoying myself. Well, like I said, obviously the mentorship's running. I have a bit of a schedule to keep me on track. But if you're interested in that potentially when it does open up, if you just hit follow on any of my socials, or there's a YouTube channel, podcast, High Performance Podcast. And then I have a bunch of free programs that you can use to make your training programs more interesting, train a little bit more variously without turning your training into an entertainment shit show. There is a balance between novelty to keep things interesting and spicy, and you can still make these things really productive through exploring things like, the training variously involves things classically a lot like gymnastics, plyometrics, Olympic weightlifting. I mean, like I said, it can sort of be anything. So a lot of freebies like that. And then you'll hear about the mentorship. I'll email you about it once you've got a free program.
Love it. Love it. So the take home message here is follow Angus on Instagram. download all the freebies, buy the latest product, and then join the waitlist for the mentorship in that order.
And honestly, like you just hit follow, and then probably like after 10 weeks of brainwashing, you'll feel compelled to do the rest of it anyway. So yeah, just go with it. That's too hectic. That's too hectic.
It's a cult.
Consent to receiving my email, and then I'll take care of the rest. That's much better.
Yeah.
Okay,
Love it. Love it. Fuck.
Good wordsmith.
Yeah, beautiful. Beautiful. Well, I don't want to take too much more of your time. I mean, I would happily talk shit about this.
I had a mental note. I was like, just do it now. But it's a credit to your yapping ability. It was a great chat.
Yeah, love it. Well, I'll let you go then, mate. But thank you so much for your time. And I'll flick you through a little wrap-up message as well. But thanks again.
Hell yeah. No, thank you very much. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Likewise, my friend.